the Study Spectrum TV channel, and today we are going to start with chapter 11, Light, Shadows and Reflections. So students, we see objects all day for the time we open our eyes in the morning to when we go to sleep. So students, we observe shape of the objects, like sometimes you can see that the object is very big, very small. Other than this, we observe the shapes of the objects. We can also observe the colors of the objects. So students, we observe all these things in a daytime. Whenever you go to school, you can observe a lot of buildings, schools, on the way different kinds of transports you can see, like truck, buses, scooter. So how have you ever imagined how can you see all these things? Because light, as during the day we get sufficient light of sun so that we can see the objects clearly. The objects around us, we can see it clearly, we can observe its shapes, sizes and the colors. Wherever students, what happens when sun sets or at night, or you go to any dark room, what happens? Will you be able to see the objects, or you can observe the shapes and sizes of the objects? No. Why? Because at that time there is no sunlight so that we can see the object around us. So because of that, what do? We just light the candle, bulb, tube light or torch, or if you go to road, you can see the street lights, and other than transports use their own light to see at night on the road. So what have we observed here? That we need some source of light to see the objects. As in during day, we can see all these objects because we get sufficient light from the sun, and night we use different other luminous bodies like candles, bulbs, torches, tube lights. So students, what we have seen, that we need some source of light. So what happens when this source of light falls on the object and travel towards our eyes, we are able to see the objects. So what we can say, that we can say that light is a source of invisible energy which gives us sensation of sight. So students, it was all about the light, as we have seen that we need some source of light to see the object clearly around us. Other than this, students, for this we need what are the source of light? So students, the objects which emits its own light are called the source of light. Now, what can be these sources? These sources can be a natural sources or can be a artificial sources. So students, if we talk about the natural sources, what are these? As earlier we had discussed about the sun. So students, as sun is far away from us, but it makes our day brightful and warm for us. And because of that, we can see the objects very clearly around us. Other than this, we can say that stars are also a natural source of light. They emit its own light. Other than this, there is if you know about the firefly, that is called the glowworm or jugnu, it also emits its own light. Then there is one more example of lanternfish. It founds in a deep sea. It also emits its own light. So we can say that these are the natural source of light because it emits its own light. Now there are some lights like man-made light or artificial source of light. So these have been made by the man. Because of that, it is called the artificial source of light. So what can include in this? We can include light, candles, torches, tube light, fluorescent bulb, street bulb. So all these are the objects which comes in the category of artificial source of light, which enable us to see the objects when there is no sun. So students, it was all about the natural source of light and man-made source of light. Other than this, students, we can also categorize these things into a luminous bodies and non-luminous bodies. So what are the luminous bodies? So students, the bodies which emits its own light are called the luminous bodies. So we can what we can categorize in this category: sun, star, torch, bulb, fluorescent tubes, CFLs, oil lamp. So all these come in the category of natural source of light. Now, luminous bodies. What are the non-luminous bodies? So students, the bodies which do not emit its own light are called the non-luminous bodies. So what can come in this category? Like door, table, and human being, car, different transports come in the category of non-luminous body. How can we see these objects? When any source of light falls on it, then only we can see these objects, whether he is a human being or wood, door, books. So these comes in the category of non-luminous body. Student, other than this, heavenly bodies, some heavenly bodies also come in this category of non-luminous bodies. Like if we talk about the moon, so moon also gets the light from the sun, earth, different kinds of planets. So these also comes in the category of non-luminous body. So students, these are the, here we have discussed about the sources of light, then natural sources of light, man-made sources of light. Then we have categorized these light into luminous bodies, and other was the non-luminous body. Now students, there are many objects. Now we are going to discuss about the objects like transparent objects, translucent object, and opaque object. So students, we can categorize objects into three categories, like transparent object, translucent object, and opaque object. So let us start with the transparent objects. So students, those material which allow to light to pass through them, fully pass through them, is called the transparent object. We can so how will we know that which objects come in this category? Like test tubes, water tumbler, plain water, air. So these are the substance like polythene. So these substance comes in the category of transparent object. If we talk about the translucent objects, so here the which allows only some amount of light to pass through them are called the translucent object. So what comes in this category? Like smoked glass, oil paper, butter paper, tissue, milk, all these substances come in the category of translucent object. Now next, opaque object. So students, opaque objects are objects which do not allow any light to pass through them. So because of that, these object comes in the category of opaque object. Like table, board, books, door, all these come in the category of opaque object, which do not allow to any light to pass through them. So students, here we have discussed about the transparent object, translucent object, and opaque object. So let us do one activity so that you can know that the objects which are called which will become in the category of transparent object, translucent object, and opaque object. So students, what you have to do, you can collect as much as things you can collect, like pencil, rubber, book, bottle, water, butter paper, tissue paper, wood, or thing, that as much you can collect the things, just collect all these. Now what you have to do, go to ground and place these objects towards the light and try to look that whether a light is coming from these objects or not. So students, after that what you have to do, just take one object and see through these objects towards the light. Now make one table. Here you have to make 3 columns. It will include object. Now the object, you can view these objects fully, or it allows some amount of light, or you cannot see anything. Other than this, what you have to write? You have to write about the object like transparent, translucent, and opaque. So see each object one by one towards towards light, and write down the objects, then whether the light goes fully goes from them or some amount or not at all. Then write that. Then you can categorize that whether the object is transparent, translucent, or the opaque. Students, this was the first activity. Other than that, you can also perform another activity. For this, what you need? You need transparent glass and lighted torch and milk, water and tea. So students, let us start with the first activity, in which you need a transparent glass, water and lighted torch. What you have to do? Just fill the glass with water and place the torch, lighted torch one side, and try to see from the another side. So are you able to see the light? So yes, you will be able to see the light. So we can see that water is a transparent object. Now throw out the water and fill it with the milk. Again do the same activity and try to see from the another side to the lighted torch. You can see that very little amount of light is coming towards the milk. So what we can say, that this milk is a translucent object. Now what you can do in next activity, fill this glass with the tea and again try to see the object in a same manner. So you will see that there is no light passing through the tea. So we can say that tea is an opaque object. So students, it was all about the source of light and the object which we can define: transparent object, translucent object and opaque object. You everywhere in a daytime. So what is this shadow? So students, what happened when any source of light pass on the shadow, and it as we have earlier discussed that any like opaque object do not allow any light to pass through them. So what happens when light fall on the opaque object? Since light cannot pass through it, the space behind opaque object appears dark, and this darkened appearance is called the shadow. How it happens? Because opaque object do not allow any light to pass through them. Because of that, you can see that there is a dark patches behind you, and these dark patches are called the shadows. Now students, there are some conditions that is important for the formation of shadow. So students, let us start with the activity through which we can see that how can we form the shadow. So students, what you have to do? The objects which you have collected, just keep it there only, and you need the help of your few friends. Now what you have to do? One by one, hold each object in the sunlight, slightly above the ground. Now what do you see on the these parts? So what you can see there, you can see that few dark patches on the ground. So these dark patches are called the shadow. Now what all you have to do? Just take a paper sheet and see the object in light so that its shadow can be formed on the sheet. Now see 3 or 4 objects through light, and tell your one friend to form the outline of that shadow. Now what you have to do next? Take your another friend and ask her to recognize the shadow. So students, you will see that these shadows are sometimes it gives us clues that which shadow is this, like human being shadow, or the shadow of wall, or the shadow of boxes. So students, what do you observe? That your shadow in a dark room or at night when there is no light. So students, will you be able to watch your shadow if there will be no light in a dark room? No. Why? Because we need some source of light to see the object. Other than this, if the room is full of light and there will be no any object, will you be able to see your shadow? No. Why? Because the most important conditions for the formation of shadow is some source of light and some opaque object, so that the source of light can fall on the object and we can see the darkened appearance. Now students, there is one more condition which is important for the formation of shadow. Let us see that.
Choose the right kindergarten, a right bag, and matching bottle to go with. The right school, the right friends. Choose the right subjects and score well. Be an expert in all. The right teacher, and make sure that they like you. Choose the right timing, the right bus, and take a cab if getting late. The right train, and don't stand near the gates. Mind the pockets. Better get into ladies' compartment. Make sure your mustache hasn't started coming. Choose the right study time and forget games, IPL, IHL, rock and metal, guitar, axe. The right group and be a model to your brother. Seriously. Choose the right syllabus, the right test paper. Keep guessing questions for exams. Choose the right branch, the right college, the right stream. Choose the right career. Lucky to have a father's business to take care of and a father to allow that. The right counselor, the right form, and make sure the project is submitted on time. Choose the right website and rely on your friends for more information. Oblivious of the sites they have been to, there is no end to your woes. Getting better with every step you climb up the ladder. The summer vacation shorter, the bucket list bigger. The night darker, the books heavier. The only light you have is your friends ahead of you. Probably he is right. Ever thought how he got the direction? No more spending your energy and money on coaching classes. No more missing classes for rain, rally, and nonsense. Get your interest back in subjects through our creative ways of teaching. Doubts, concepts, applications, all explained through one vibrant animation. Subjects covered by multiple teachers with repeat telecasts. Special programs only for basic foundation and paper analysis. Personality development, career counseling, admissions, hobbies, all covered. A new approach to study with long-term perspective. So sit back comfortably in your homes and watch Study Spectrum TV channel.
Now again, when you give the source of light on your friend's head, you can see the shadow of your friend. Why? Because there is one screen. So students, what we have seen here, that the conditions we need for the formation of shadow, that we need some source of light, we need one opaque object, other than that we need one screen, and this screen can be building, tree or ground, it can be anything, so that you can see your shadow on that. So students, it was all about the shadow. Now as students, you know that sometimes shadow gives us some information about the shapes of object, but sometimes shadow can also mislead us about that object. And students, but other than this, students, you can also create the shadows of some animals with the help of your hands. You can make, suppose that you need, for this you need one screen and a dark place, and make some movement from your hands, and you will be able to see that, you will feel like that is the picture of some another animal. So students, here we have seen the condition for the formation of shadow. Other than this, students, if we do one more activity, so that we will be able to see that how our shadows look. Sometimes it looks bigger in size, sometimes it looks smaller in size, and we are also going to do one activity through which we can see that all the colors of object gives only dark shadows. So let us start with the activity. So students, for this activity you need a torch, black paper or tape and a ball and bare wall. Now what will be the procedures for this activity? Just what you have to do, cover the front of glass of a torch with a black paper with the help of tape, and you have to make a small hole in that paper so that light can come through that hole. Now in next you need a dark room, switch on the torch and point towards the wall, that source of light, that will be the lighted torch. Now place the ball on the path of light. Now what you have to do, that just keep the torch and before in screen in between you have to keep the ball. Now what you will see, that the shadow is forming on the bare wall. So it shows that you need some screen for the formation of shadow. Other than this, students, what you have to do, that just take the torch and move the ball towards the torch. So what you will see, that the size of shadow is increasing, but when you moving the ball away from the source of light, you will see that size of the shadow is decreasing. Other than this, students, if you change the color of the ball, so what you will see, that it doesn't matter, color doesn't matter, the shadow will be always appear in a dark shade. So students, here we have seen the formation of shadow. So students, as earlier we have discussed that our shadow is always black or of dark appearance. Moreover, it changes its length and direction during the day. This is because the position of sun changes with the time during the day, and we see our shadow, that sometimes if we see in the morning or evening, what we can see, that our shadow looks more larger than our body. Other than this, sometimes at noon we see that it looks shorter. So it is why happens it all these, because of the changes position of the sun. Now students, next time when you go to a sunny day, and then what you have to do, have a good look at your own shadow. It should be a midday, then what you will see, that it will cast a shorter shadow in a day, but in the morning and evening it is a larger shadow. So students, what we have seen, that opaque object casts a dark shadow. Other than this, if we talk about the translucent object, so it forms a weak shadow, and transparent objects do not cast any shadow at all. So it was students, where what we have seen, that the formation of shadow, we need different conditions, like we need some source of light, we need some opaque object. Other than this, we need some screen. Now other than this, the formation of shadow is a direct result of the rectilinear propagation of light. So what is rectilinear propagation of light? As students, we know that light travels in a straight line is called the rectilinear propagation of light, that we are going to discuss in a further.